The mysterious delivery. It was a quiet evening in Ridgeview, a small, peaceful town surrounded by dense forests. Alex, a young man with an unremarkable life, sat in his cozy living room, flipping through channels on the old TV. The sound of crickets outside was the only reminder of life beyond his walls. He had just settled down with a cup of coffee when a loud, unexpected knock echoed through the house. Alex frowned. It was unusual for anyone to visit, especially this late. He glanced at the clock, 9:47 p.m. Hesitant, he stood up and approached the door cautiously. Peeking through the small peephole, he saw nothing but the dark night. Still, the knock had been too real to ignore. Gathering his courage, Alex opened the door. What he saw made him take a step back. A large box, nearly the height of his waist, sat on his porch. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The surface was metallic, shimmering under the porch light, and engraved with strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly. There was no delivery truck in sight, and no sign of who might have left it. "What the?" Alex muttered, staring at the box. A small envelope was attached to the side. He carefully removed it, finding a note inside. The words were written in a language he didn't understand, curved letters and sharp symbols that looked more like art than text. He looked around again, feeling uneasy. The street was empty, the only movement coming from the swaying trees in the gentle breeze. With no immediate answers, Alex decided to bring the box inside. Dragging it wasn't easy. The box was heavier than it looked. Once inside, he placed it in the center of his living room. He sat down on the couch, staring at the mysterious object. Questions swirled in his mind. Who sent it? What was inside? And why did it feel like it was meant for him? As if in response to his thoughts, the box began to hum. A soft vibration spread through the floor, and the glowing symbols on its surface became brighter. Alex jumped to his feet, his heart racing. He backed away, grabbing a baseball bat from the corner of the room. The hum grew louder, and the top of the box started to shift. Panels moved on their own, sliding aside with smooth mechanical precision. A faint light poured out from within. Alex tightened his grip on the bat, ready to defend himself from whatever was emerging. When the lid fully opened, the light dimmed, revealing what lay inside. Alex's breath caught in his throat. There, curled up and motionless, was a young girl, except she wasn't human. Her skin was a shimmering silver, almost metallic, and her hair was a deep iridescent blue. She looked fragile, her eyes closed, as if she were asleep. Alex stared, stunned. What is this?" he whispered, lowering the bat slightly. His fear gave way to curiosity. Was she alive? He hesitated for a moment, then leaned closer. The girl's chest rose and fell faintly. She was breathing. Alex reached out, but before he could touch her, her eyes shot open. They were unlike anything he'd ever seen. Large, glowing softly with an otherworldly light. She looked directly at him, and in that moment, Alex felt as if she could see right through him. Help. The word wasn't spoken aloud, but Alex heard it clearly in his mind. It was her voice, soft, desperate, and filled with fear. He stumbled back, dropping the bat. You can talk." "In my head," he stammered. The girl sat up slowly, her movements weak. She seemed disoriented, her gaze darting around the room. "Please," she said again, this time out loud, though her voice was faint. "Don't let them find me." "Who's them?" Alex asked, still trying to process what was happening. His instincts told him to call someone. Anyone. But something about her vulnerability stopped him. She looked terrified, and he couldn't shake the feeling that she needed him. Before he could ask more questions, a faint sound outside caught his attention. It was barely audible, like the hum of machinery. He moved to the window, peeking out carefully. For the first time, he noticed strange lights in the sky, hovering in the distance. They weren't stars or planes. They moved too erratically. The girl struggled to stand, gripping the edge of the box for support. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Who's here?" Alex asked, his pulse quickening. "The hunters," she replied. "They'll kill me if they find me." Alex turned to her, torn between disbelief and the urge to protect her. "You need to explain." Before he could finish, the lights outside grew brighter, and a low, rumbling noise filled the air. Whatever was coming, it wasn't friendly. Alex made a snap decision. "All right," he said, grabbing her hand. "We need to get out of here. Now." As the girl leaned on him for support, Alex couldn't help but wonder what he had gotten himself into. Whatever this was, it was far beyond anything he had ever imagined. But one thing was clear: he couldn't abandon her. The mysterious delivery was only the beginning. The alien baron's gift. The morning sun cast its golden light across Alex's cluttered living room. The alien girl, Lyra, sat quietly on the couch, her shimmering silver skin catching the sunlight. She looked frail yet otherworldly, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and curiosity. Alex paced the room, running a hand through his messy hair. He had no idea what to do next. "Okay, so you're an alien," Alex said, more to himself than to her. "And apparently, someone's after you." "Great, just great." Lyra didn't respond immediately, her gaze fixed on the strange metallic box she had arrived in. Finally, she said in a soft voice, "You don't understand. They won't stop until they find me." Alex sighed and sat across from her. "Then maybe you should start explaining. Who are they? And why were you sent here?" Before Lyra could answer, a faint beep echoed from the box. Both Alex and Lyra turned to look at it. The box's surface began to shimmer again, and a holographic projection flickered to life above it. The image of an imposing alien figure appeared, a tall, regal being with elongated features and deep, piercing eyes. He wore ornate robes that glimmered like starlight. The hologram spoke in a commanding voice, its words alien yet somehow comprehensible to Alex. "Greetings, human. I am Lord Krivok, Baron of the Illyrian Dominion." Alex blinked, utterly baffled. Hi." The hologram continued, ignoring Alex's awkward response. "What you see before you is my most valuable creation, Lyra. She is a unique being, one of a kind, and she carries within her a power that could alter the fate of many worlds." Lyra's expression darkened, and she looked away, as though she already knew what the Baron was going to say. Krivok's image turned its gaze directly toward Alex, his tone growing sharper. "I have entrusted her to you, human. Protect her at all costs. She is not merely a gift. She is a responsibility. Should harm befall her, the consequences will be severe." The hologram paused, and for a moment, Alex thought it was finished. But then Krivok added in a chilling tone, "Beware, human. Others seek her power. They will stop at nothing to take her from you. Protect her, or you will share her fate." With that, the hologram fizzled out, leaving Alex and Lyra in stunned silence. Alex stared at the box, his mind racing. "Okay, so let me get this straight. Some alien baron sent you here and wants me to play babysitter. And if I mess up, I'm screwed. Is that what I'm hearing?" Lyra nodded slowly. "It's not as simple as it seems. Krivok doesn't care about me, only what I can do. I didn't choose to come here. I was escaping." Alex rubbed his temples. Escaping from what? Lyra hesitated before answering. "From them. The bounty hunters. They work for the factions that want to use my abilities for war." "What kind of abilities?" Alex asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. "What are you, some kind of weapon?" Lyra flinched at the question, her glowing eyes dimming. "I was created to be one," she admitted softly. "But I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want to be free." Her words struck a chord with Alex. She didn't sound like a weapon. She sounded like a scared, lonely person. He sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Well, you picked the wrong guy to save you," I'm just a regular human. I don't have alien powers or a spaceship or anything like that." Lyra's gaze lifted to meet his. "You have something more important. You're kind." Alex opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a sudden noise outside caught his attention. It was faint but unmistakable, the low hum of machinery, growing louder. "Stay here," Alex said, grabbing the baseball bat he had left by the door. He moved to the window and peeked outside. At first, he saw nothing unusual. But then, in the distance, he spotted something hovering just above the treetops. A sleek, black ship with glowing blue lights. It was scanning the area, its lights sweeping across the ground. "They found me," Lyra whispered, standing up. Her voice trembled with fear. Alex turned to her, his mind racing. "Okay, we need a plan. Do you have any idea how to fight them off?" Lyra shook her head. "I can't use my abilities yet. They take time to recharge." "Recharge? Like a phone?" Alex muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. "Great, just great." The hum of the ship grew louder, and Alex realized they didn't have much time. "All right," he said, grabbing his car keys. "We're not staying here. Come on." Lyra hesitated. "They'll track us. They always do. Then we'll make it harder for them." Alex replied. "Let's go." As they rushed out the back door, Alex couldn't help but wonder how his life had turned upside down in less than 24 hours. He didn't know much about Lyra or the forces chasing her, but one thing was clear. He couldn't abandon her. Whatever this was, he was in it now. And he had a feeling it was just the beginning. A bond forms. The road stretched endlessly before them, winding through thick forests and quiet hills. Alex gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white as he glanced at the passenger seat. Lyra sat there, her glowing eyes fixed on the scenery outside the window. The early morning light reflected off her silver skin, making her look even more otherworldly. She didn't speak, and the silence in the car was heavy. Alex cleared his throat, trying to break the tension. "So, you're an alien," he said, for what felt like the 100th time. It still sounded absurd, even as he said it out loud. Lyra turned her gaze toward him, her expression unreadable. "And you're a human," she replied softly. "We're both out of place in this situation." Alex chuckled dryly. "You've got that right. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a guy with a small house and an old car. I'm not exactly hero material." Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "You don't have to be a hero," she said. "You just have to care." Her words caught Alex off guard. He wasn't used to people seeing him as anything special. He shrugged and focused on the road. "Well, for what it's worth, I don't know how to care for someone being hunted by aliens." Lyra didn't respond, and the silence returned. Alex glanced at her again, noticing how tired she looked. She was slumped against the seat, her glowing eyes dimmer than before. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, but it was clear she was struggling. "Using my abilities earlier took a lot out of me. I need time to recover." Alex frowned. "Abilities, huh? Like what? Laser beams? Super strength?" Lyra smiled faintly. "No, my powers are different. I can manipulate energy, heal wounds, create barriers, sense emotions, but it comes at a cost. Every time I use them, it drains me." Alex nodded slowly. "So, you're basically running on empty right now." "Yes," she admitted. "And that's dangerous. If the hunters catch up to us, I won't be able to protect either of us." Her words sent a chill down Alex's spine. He hadn't forgotten the ominous warning from the holographic Baron. Protect her at all costs. But how was he supposed to protect someone with powers beyond his understanding, especially against alien bounty hunters? As they drove deeper into the countryside, Alex spotted an old gas station up ahead. It looked abandoned, the kind of place no one would think to look for them. He pulled into the parking lot and shut off the engine. "Let's take a break," he said, You need to rest." Lyra hesitated, but eventually nodded. They stepped out of the car, the quiet surroundings feeling almost too peaceful. Alex grabbed a blanket from the trunk and handed it to her. "Here, get some sleep in the car. I'll keep watch." Lyra took the blanket and climbed back into the passenger seat. She wrapped herself in it and closed her eyes, her breathing slow and steady. Alex leaned against the car, his eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of danger. He felt exposed, vulnerable. He didn't know how to fight off bounty hunters or evade alien ships, but he knew one thing. He couldn't let anything happen to Lyra. After what felt like hours, Lyra stirred. She opened her eyes and looked at Alex. "You didn't rest," she said. "I couldn't," Alex replied. "Someone had to keep an eye out." Lyra smiled faintly. "Thank you." Alex shrugged. "Don't mention it. You're my responsibility now, I guess." She looked at him for a long moment, her glowing eyes filled with something Alex couldn't quite place. "You're different," she said finally. "Most humans I've encountered." "You've met other humans?" Alex interrupted, surprised. Lyra nodded. "Yes, but they were afraid of me. They didn't want to help. But you're not afraid." Alex laughed nervously. "Oh, I'm terrified. I just don't have the luxury of showing it." Lyra smiled again, a genuine one this time. "Still, you've been kind. That means more than you know." Alex shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't used to being called kind. "Well, let's just hope my kindness doesn't get us both killed." As the sun began to set, Alex decided it was time to move again. They couldn't stay in one place for too long. Lyra seemed more rested now, her eyes brighter and her movements less sluggish. They got back on the road, the car winding through narrow, tree-lined paths. For the first time, Lyra began to open up. She told Alex about her world, a place of towering crystalline cities and endless fields of light. She spoke of how she was created in a lab, designed to be a key to an ancient weapon hidden on her planet. But when she realized what the weapon could do, wipe out entire civilizations, she fled, unable to bear the thought of being used for such destruction. Alex listened in silence, his mind struggling to process it all. When she finished, he said, "So, you're telling me you're not just an alien. You're a living key to some doomsday device." Lyra nodded solemnly. "That's why the hunters want me. And that's why Krivok sent me to you. He believes you can protect me." Alex shook his head. "I don't know why he thinks that. I'm just a guy with a car and a baseball bat." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with quiet determination. "You're more than that, Alex. I can feel it." For the first time, Alex began to wonder if she was right. Maybe he was more than he thought he was. Maybe, just maybe, he could protect her. The hunters arrive. Nightfall brought an eerie calm to the dense forest where Alex and Lyra had taken refuge. The two had traveled deep into the wilderness, abandoning the beaten path in an effort to stay hidden. Alex had parked the car under a natural canopy of trees, its dull green paint blending into the shadows. They'd spent the last few hours setting up a makeshift camp, relying on supplies Alex had hastily grabbed during their escape. Lyra sat cross-legged on a patch of moss, her silver skin glowing faintly in the moonlight. Alex crouched nearby, poking at the small fire they'd managed to start. He kept one ear tuned to the silence of the forest, his nerves on edge. "They're close," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible over the crackling fire. Alex froze, his hand tightening around the stick he was using to stoke the flames. "How do you know?" She closed her glowing eyes, her features tense with concentration. "I can feel their presence. They're scanning the area. They know I'm near, but not exactly where." "Great," Alex muttered under his breath. He grabbed the baseball bat that had become his makeshift weapon and glanced at Lyra. "Any chance those abilities of yours are ready to go?" Lyra shook her head, guilt flashing across her face. "I need more time. I've recovered some strength, but using my powers now could attract them even faster." Alex sighed. He wasn't a soldier or a hero, but he couldn't just sit and wait to be ambushed. "All right, we need a plan. If they find us, we fight. If it looks bad, we run. Simple enough." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. "I don't want to hurt anyone, Alex, even if they're after me." Alex gave her a wry smile. "You let me worry about that. My job's keeping us alive." Suddenly, a sharp noise cut through the stillness, a metallic whirring sound that made the hairs on the back of Alex's neck stand up. He stood quickly, scanning the dark forest. In the distance, faint blue lights flickered through the trees, moving closer with each passing second. "They're here," Lyra said, her voice trembling. Alex gritted his teeth, adrenaline surging through his veins. He grabbed Lyra's arm gently but firmly. "Stay behind me. We're not going down without a fight." Before they could move, the clearing was flooded with light. A sleek black ship hovered above them, its glowing engines humming ominously. The ship descended slowly, stopping just above the treetops. A hatch opened on its underside, and 3 figures dropped to the ground. They'd moved with unnerving precision, their tall, armored forms glinting in the firelight. The bounty hunters were humanoid, but clearly not human. Their helmets had sharp, angular designs, with glowing visors that pulsed rhythmically. Each carried a weapon that looked far more advanced than anything Alex had ever seen, sleek, silver rifles that emitted a faint blue glow. One of the hunters stepped forward, its mechanical voice cutting through the night. "Surrender the girl, human, and you may leave unharmed." Alex stepped in front of Lyra, his grip tightening on the bat. "Yeah, that's not happening." The hunter tilted its head, as if amused. "You are no match for us. Do not make this difficult." Lyra tugged on Alex's sleeve, her voice urgent. "Alex, don't. You can't fight them." Alex glanced at her, his jaw set. "I'm not giving you up." Without warning, the lead hunter raised its rifle, aiming directly at Alex. The air around the weapon shimmered as it charged. Before it could fire, Lyra stepped forward, her silver skin glowing brighter. She raised her hands, and a translucent barrier of light formed in front of them, just as the weapon discharged. The energy blast collided with the barrier, sending ripples through the air. Lyra staggered, her energy visibly draining. "Run," she shouted, grabbing Alex's arm. But Alex didn't move. Something primal surged within him, a refusal to let her face this alone. He grabbed a nearby rock and hurled it at the lead hunter. It struck the helmet with a dull thud, causing the alien to stagger back slightly. The second hunter stepped forward, aiming its rifle at Lyra. Alex lunged, swinging the bat with all his strength. The bat connected with the hunter's weapon, knocking it to the ground. The alien retaliated, shoving Alex back with surprising force. He hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of him. Lyra screamed, her glowing eyes blazing as she unleashed a burst of energy. The force knocked the hunters off their feet, but it left Lyra visibly drained. She dropped to her knees, gasping for breath. The lead hunter recovered quickly, rising to its feet. "Enough," it barked. "You cannot escape." Alex scrambled to his feet, positioning himself between Lyra and the hunters. "You want her? You'll have to go through me first." The hunter raised its rifle again, but before it could fire, a blinding light erupted from the forest. A new figure stepped into the clearing, a tall, imposing being clad in flowing metallic robes. Its presence was overwhelming, and the hunters immediately froze. "Stand down," the newcomer commanded, its voice resonating with authority. The hunters hesitated, then slowly lowered their weapons. The lead hunter spoke, its tone cautious. "Lord Krivok, we did not expect your presence." Alex's eyes widened. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. The alien baron stepped forward, his glowing eyes fixed on Lyra. "I see my trust in you was not misplaced, human," he said, addressing Alex. But this situation has escalated beyond your control. Alex's mind raced. Who was Krivok really? An ally? Or something far more dangerous? One thing was certain. This night was far from over. The chase across worlds. The crackling tension in the forest was palpable. Lord Krivok stood tall, his presence commanding and unyielding. The bounty hunters, visibly cowed, slowly retreated into the shadows. Their sleek ship ascended silently, disappearing into the night sky. Alex and Lyra stood frozen, unsure whether to feel relieved or more threatened. Krivok turned his piercing gaze toward Alex. His glowing eyes seemed to study him, evaluating every detail. "You've done well to protect her, human," Krivok said, his voice smooth but laced with authority. "But your involvement has drawn unnecessary attention. This is no longer a game of hiding. It's time to move." Alex stepped forward, his fists clenched. "Move where? And who put you in charge of anything? You sent her to me with zero explanation, and now you just show up and act like you own the place." Krivok's expression didn't waver, but there was a flicker of something, amusement, perhaps, in his glowing eyes. "I am the one who gave Lyra her chance at survival. She would have been captured long ago without my intervention." Alex wasn't buying it. "Yeah. And what exactly is your angle? You don't seem like the altruistic type." Lyra, still weak but recovering, stepped between them. "Krivok, why are you here? You said you wouldn't interfere unless absolutely necessary." Krivok turned his gaze to her, and for a moment, his stern demeanor softened. "The bounty hunters were only the beginning. Word of your location has spread. If we do not leave this planet immediately, more will come, and they will not hesitate to burn everything in their path to find you." Alex looked between them, his confusion growing. "Leave the planet? What are you talking about? We don't exactly have a spaceship lying around." Krivok raised a hand, and the shimmering metallic box from earlier floated toward him, its surface shifting and glowing. "The box I sent with Lyra is more than it appears," he said. With a wave of his hand, the box unfolded and transformed, expanding into a sleek, compact spacecraft. Its reflective surface seemed to ripple like liquid, adapting to its surroundings. Alex stared, his jaw dropping. "That was in my living room. You're telling me it's a spaceship?" Krivok nodded. "A stealth-class vessel equipped with cloaking technology and faster-than-light capabilities. It's your best chance of survival." Alex shook his head, still trying to process everything. "Okay, so we just hop in and fly away. And then what? Go where?" Krivok's tone grew grave. "There is a safe haven, a hidden sanctuary on a moon beyond the edges of this galaxy. It is shielded from detection, but the journey will be perilous. You'll need to rely on each other to survive." Lyra's voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I'll go, but Alex shouldn't have to." "No," Alex interrupted, his voice firm. "We're in this together. I'm not leaving you to face whatever's out there alone." Krivok studied Alex for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, but know this. The hunters will not stop. They will pursue you across the stars. You must trust Lyra, and she must trust you, or neither of you will survive." The urgency in Krivok's voice left no room for argument. Within minutes, Alex and Lyra were inside the spacecraft, its interior sleek and filled with glowing controls. Alex sat in the pilot's seat, his hands hovering nervously over the strange console. I don't know how to fly this thing," he admitted, glancing at Lyra. She placed a hand on the console, and a soft hum filled the cabin. The controls began to light up, symbols and patterns appearing in the air around them. "I'll guide it," she said, "but I'll need your help if things go wrong." Alex nodded, gripping the edges of the seat as the ship began to lift off. "Let's hope they don't." As the spacecraft broke through Earth's atmosphere, Alex stared in awe at the view. The vastness of space stretched out before them, stars glittering like diamonds. It was both beautiful and terrifying. But the moment of peace didn't last. Alarms blared, and the ship's display lit up with warnings. Lyra's face paled. "They're here." Alex looked out the viewport and saw 3 dark ships emerging from hyperspace. Their designs were sleek and menacing, with glowing blue engines that pulsed like heartbeats. The hunters had found them. "Hold on," Lyra shouted, gripping the controls. The ship veered sharply as beams of energy streaked past them. The cabin shook violently, and Alex felt his stomach lurch. "What do we do?" he yelled, his voice barely audible over the alarms. Lyra's focus didn't waver. "The ship has defensive measures, but they're limited. We need to reach a wormhole nearby. It'll take us to the sanctuary system." "And how far is that?" Alex asked, his heart racing. Lyra's voice was grim. "Far enough that we'll have to fight." The hunters' ships closed in, their weapons lighting up the void. Lyra activated the ship's defensive shields, but each hit weakened them. Alex could see the strain on her face as she split her focus between flying and maintaining the energy systems. "Tell me what to do," Alex said, desperate to help. Lyra pointed to a glowing panel. "Use that to release countermeasures. It'll disrupt their targeting systems." Alex fumbled with the unfamiliar controls, finally pressing a button that unleashed a burst of flares. The hunters' ships swerved, their weapons momentarily misfiring. "Good," Lyra said. "Keep them off us while I calculate the wormhole's coordinates." The chase continued, a tense dance through asteroid fields and debris. The hunters were relentless, their ships faster and more maneuverable. But Alex and Lyra's determination kept them one step ahead. Finally, the wormhole came into view, a swirling vortex of light and energy. Lyra pushed the ship's engines to their limit, the cabin vibrating as they raced toward the portal. The hunters closed in, their weapons charging for one final strike. "We're almost there," Lyra shouted. The ship entered the wormhole just as a blast from the hunters' weapons grazed its hull. The cabin was bathed in blinding light as they were pulled into the vortex, the ship spinning uncontrollably. Then everything went quiet. When Alex opened his eyes, the ship was floating in a tranquil starfield. Lyra exhaled shakily, her hands trembling on the controls. "We made it," she whispered. Alex looked at her, his heart still pounding. "Barely." But as the sanctuary moon appeared in the distance, a small glimmer of hope sparked in both of them. For now, they were safe, but the real challenges were still ahead. The hidden truth. The ship drifted into orbit around the sanctuary moon, its silver hull reflecting the pale glow of a distant sun. The moon was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with a strange, glass-like material that pulsed faintly, as though it was alive. The sight was breathtaking, but Alex's nerves wouldn't let him fully appreciate it. Lyra guided the ship into a docking bay carved into the moon's crystalline surface. The interior was vast, with walls that seemed to ripple and change colors in response to their arrival. The air inside the docking bay was warm, carrying a faint, pleasant scent that Alex couldn't place. As the ship powered down, Lyra slumped back in her seat, visibly drained. Alex unbuckled himself and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "I'll be fine. The moon's energy should help me recover. This place is unique." "Unique how?" Alex asked, standing up and peering out the viewport at the alien structures surrounding them. Lyra hesitated. "This moon is ancient, built by a race long gone. It's alive in a way. Its core generates energy that shields it from detection. That's why it's safe for now." "For now," Alex repeated, his unease growing. He grabbed his backpack and helped Lyra to her feet. "You don't sound too confident." Lyra didn't reply, instead focusing on steadying herself as they exited the ship. The moment they stepped onto the moon's surface, Alex felt a strange warmth spread through him. It was as if the air itself was charged with life. He glanced at Lyra, and noticed her posture straightening, her movements becoming more fluid. "This place really is alive," Alex murmured. "It's more than alive," Lyra said, her voice steadier now. "It holds the key to my existence, and to everything Krivok didn't tell you." Alex frowned. "What do you mean?" Before Lyra could answer, a soft hum filled the air. The walls of the docking bay shimmered, and a glowing path appeared on the floor, leading deeper into the moon's interior. Lyra's expression hardened. "It's guiding us." Alex looked at her skeptically. "Guiding us where?" "This feels like a trap." "It's not," Lyra said firmly. "This moon recognizes me. It's responding to my presence." "Yeah, that's not creepy at all," Alex muttered as he followed her down the glowing path. The corridor they entered seemed endless, the walls shifting and pulsing with faint light. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the moon was watching them. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a massive chamber. The walls were covered in intricate patterns that glowed softly, and in the center of the room stood a pedestal holding a crystalline sphere. Lyra approached the sphere cautiously, her hand hovering over it. "This is what we came for," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex stepped closer, eyeing the sphere. "What is it?" "It's a memory core," Lyra explained. "It holds the truth about me, and why Krivok sent me to you." Alex raised an eyebrow. "You mean he hasn't been completely honest?" "Shocking." Lyra ignored his sarcasm and placed her hand on the sphere. The room filled with a brilliant light, and suddenly, images began to form in the air around them, holograms of alien worlds, towering cities, and battles that spanned the stars. The holograms focused on a group of scientists, their elongated forms resembling Krivok's species. They were gathered around a pod, which Alex recognized immediately. It was Lyra's. The scientists spoke in their alien tongue, but their intentions were clear. They were creating a living weapon. The scene shifted, showing Lyra as a child, her silver skin glowing faintly as she was trained to harness her abilities. Her powers were incredible. She could manipulate energy, heal, and even destroy with devastating force. But the holograms also revealed the cost of using her powers. With each use, a piece of her life force was drained. Alex's stomach twisted as he watched. "They created you to be a weapon," he said, his voice filled with anger. "That's why they want you back." Lyra nodded, her glowing eyes filled with pain. "They don't see me as a person, Alex. To them, I'm just a tool." The hologram shifted again, this time showing Krivok. He stood before a council of aliens, arguing passionately. Though Alex couldn't understand the words, he could see the determination in Krivok's expression. He wasn't just a baron. He was a rebel, fighting against the forces that wanted to use Lyra for war. Lyra turned to Alex. "Krivok isn't my enemy, but he's not my savior either. He sent me to you because he believed you could help me unlock my full potential." Alex's brow furrowed. "Full potential? What does that mean?" Lyra hesitated. "It means choosing. If I unlock my powers fully, I can stop the hunters and the factions chasing me. But it will come at a cost." Alex's heart sank. "Your life." Lyra nodded, her voice trembling. "If I use everything, I won't survive." Alex stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "And Krivok knew this. He sent you to die." "No," Lyra said. "He sent me to decide. He believes I'm the only one who can stop what's coming. But the choice is mine." Alex felt a surge of anger and helplessness. "That's not a choice, Lyra. That's a death sentence." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her glowing eyes meeting his. "I won't make it alone, Alex. Whatever happens, I need you to help me decide." The room fell silent, the holograms fading back into the sphere. Alex looked around, the enormity of their situation pressing down on him. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the fate of countless worlds. And the hardest decisions were yet to come. The final stand. The sanctuary moon's crystalline surface shimmered with an unnatural energy, pulsing in sync with the tension that gripped the air. Alex and Lyra stood in the heart of the ancient chamber, their reflections scattered across the glass-like walls. Lyra's revelation hung heavy between them. Her choice to unlock her full potential could save countless lives, but would cost her own. Alex paced back and forth, his fists clenched. "There has to be another way," he said, his voice tight with frustration. "We'll figure something out. Maybe Krivok knows." "Krivok didn't bring us here to find another way," Lyra interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "He brought us here to face the truth." Alex stopped, turning to her. "The truth? The truth is you shouldn't have to sacrifice yourself for people who see you as nothing more than a weapon." Lyra stepped closer to him, her glowing eyes soft but resolute. "It's not just about them. If I don't do this, the factions will tear the galaxy apart. Millions will die, Alex. I can stop that." "And then what?" Alex shot back, his voice rising. "What about you? What about your life?" "That matters too, Lyra." Before she could respond, the chamber trembled violently. The crystalline walls flashed red, and a deafening hum filled the air. Lyra turned to the pedestal, her face pale. "They found us." Alex grabbed her arm. "Who's they?" "The hunters." "No," she whispered. "Worse." The ceiling above them cracked open, revealing a massive alien ship hovering above the sanctuary. Its hull was covered in jagged black spikes, and its engines roared like a living beast. Smaller ships poured out of it, swarming toward the moon's surface. Alex pulled Lyra behind him, his mind racing. "What do we do?" Lyra's hands trembled as she activated the crystalline sphere. "I need to finish what we started. The core will amplify my abilities, but it'll take time." "How much time?" Alex asked, his voice laced with urgency. "Minutes," she said, her voice barely audible. "Maybe less." Alex nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then I'll buy you those minutes." He sprinted toward the chamber's entrance, where the first wave of attackers had begun to breach. The alien soldiers were massive, clad in dark, skeletal armor that seemed to writhe like living tissue. They carried weapons that glowed with ominous energy, their steps heavy and deliberate. Alex grabbed a discarded alien staff from a previous skirmish. It surfaced humming with latent power. "All right," he muttered to himself. "Let's see what this thing can do." The first soldier lunged at him, its blade slicing through the air. Alex dodged, barely escaping the attack, and swung the staff with all his might. A burst of energy shot out, slamming the soldier into the wall. Alex stared at the weapon in awe. Well, that's new. He didn't have time to celebrate. More soldiers poured in, their weapons lighting up the chamber with violent flashes. Alex fought furiously, each swing of the staff sending ripples of energy through his enemies. Despite his lack of training, his sheer determination, and the weapon's power kept him alive. Meanwhile, Lyra stood at the pedestal, her hands glowing as she drew energy from the crystalline core. The air around her vibrated, and her silver skin began to shine brighter. She winced, the strain visible on her face, but she didn't stop. "Alex," she called out, her voice echoing through the chamber. "I'm almost there." Alex glanced back at her, his breath ragged. "Good, because I'm running out of tricks here." One of the alien soldiers managed to knock Alex off his feet, its blade aimed for his chest. He rolled away just in time, swinging the staff upward and disarming the soldier. But another was already closing in. Before the soldier could strike, a massive shockwave erupted from the pedestal. Alex shielded his eyes as blinding light filled the chamber. When he looked up, Lyra was levitating above the ground, her body surrounded by a radiant aura. The alien soldiers froze, their weapons dropping as if compelled by some unseen force. Lyra raised her hands, and the crystalline walls seemed to respond, channeling energy toward her. Her voice rang out, amplified by the moon itself. "Leave this place, or face annihilation." The lead alien soldier took a step back, its resolve wavering. But the ship above them fired a massive beam of energy directly at the chamber. Lyra extended her arms, creating a barrier that absorbed the blast. The strain was visible in her every movement, but she held firm. Alex scrambled to his feet, rushing to her side. "Lyra, stop. You're killing yourself." She turned to him, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "It's the only way." "No," Alex said, grabbing her hand. "We'll find another way. Together." For a moment, Lyra hesitated. The energy around her flickered, as if responding to her doubt. But then, the alien ship began charging another blast, this one even more powerful. Lyra looked at Alex, her expression filled with both sorrow and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me what it means to be human." Before Alex could stop her, she unleashed everything. The chamber erupted in a blinding explosion of light, the shockwave tearing through the alien forces and shattering the massive ship above them. The energy spread across the moon, enveloping everything in its path. When the light faded, Alex found himself lying on the ground, the chamber eerily silent. The alien soldiers were gone, and the moon's surface had returned to its tranquil state. But Lyra was nowhere to be seen. "Lyra!" Alex shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. He searched frantically, but all he found was the crystalline sphere, now dim and lifeless. Tears blurred his vision as he collapsed to his knees. She was gone. She had saved the galaxy, but at the cost of her own life. As Alex sat there, the sphere suddenly pulsed faintly. A familiar voice echoed in his mind. Lyra's voice. "I'm with you, Alex. Always." He clutched the sphere to his chest, a bittersweet smile breaking through his grief. She had given everything to protect countless lives, and her legacy would live on through him. As he stepped out of the chamber, the stars above seemed brighter than ever, a silent testament to Lyra's sacrifice. The fight was over, but her story, and the bond they had shared, would never be forgotten.